Many people are convinced that its deep, dark waters harbor a secretive creature. Now, a new expedition hopes to solve the mystery of the Loch Ness Monster.
Something large is living in a remote Alaskan lake. The leading scientific theory for what it is involves a creature that can weigh 4 tons, move in near silence, and potentially live for centuries. And whatever it is, it has had every advantage it needs to stay hidden. The lake is vast, it is deep, it is cold, and it is completely unbothered by our need for answers. For 80 years, witnesses have reported encounters. Fishermen have found equipment destroyed. Investigators have searched for proof. Yet nobody has been able to conclusively explain what is living beneath the surface. The lake built for secrets. Before we discuss what might be living there, we need to understand what there actually is, because Lake Iliamna is no ordinary lake. It is vast, isolated, and unlike almost anything else in North America. Lake Iliamna is the largest lake in Alaska and the 3rd largest freshwater lake in the United States. 77 miles long, 22 miles wide, in places nearly 1,000 feet deep. Scientists have described it as an inland sea, and they mean that literally. This is not a lake you can see across. This is not a lake you can meaningfully search. This is a body of water with a surface area of over 1,000 square miles, most of it cold, dark, and unexplored. You cannot drive to Lake Iliamna. There are no roads connecting it to the Alaskan highway system. The only practical access is by float plane or boat from a coastal town. That isolation matters more than anything else in this story, because it means that whatever lives in that lake has been doing so largely undisturbed by human activity for a very long time. The lake drains through the Kvichak River into Bristol Bay, which opens into the Pacific Ocean. That is not a footnote. That navigable, documented waterway between the Pacific and the lake is the entire hinge on which the most plausible scientific theory turns. Every summer, the Kvichak Corridor hosts one of the largest sockeye salmon runs on Earth, between 5 and 8 million adult sockeye returning annually. 5 to 8 million fish. One of the greatest concentrations of prey biomass in North American freshwater. And the lake also holds a documented, isolated population of approximately 400 harbor seals, a population geneticists believe entered from the ocean long ago and has been resident ever since. In the ocean, harbor seals are a confirmed prey item for several large shark species. A vast, inaccessible lake, a direct ocean connection, millions of salmon, hundreds of marine mammals, and nearly 1,000 feet of cold, dark water beneath it all. Now we can talk about what people say is in there. Warnings from long before us. Here is the part of this story that tends to get romanticized or quietly skipped. Both are mistakes. The indigenous peoples of the Lake Iliamna region, primarily Yupik, Dena'ina Athabaskan, and Aleut communities, have oral traditions that include accounts of large, dangerous creatures in the lake. These traditions predate any modern European or American contact with the region. They were documented by early 20th century researchers and ethnographers. They did not emerge in response to modern sightings. They were already there, waiting. Among Aleut communities, stories described large fish-like creatures in the regional waters, aggressive, capable of capsizing small watercraft, dangerous enough that certain areas warranted deliberate avoidance. These accounts were consistent enough across separate communities to suggest a shared oral record, not isolated storytelling. The name Iliamna itself has been linked by some regional historians to a Dena'ina word referencing a large mythical fish in the lake, though the etymology is not uniformly agreed upon by linguists. Folklore is not biological evidence. That must be stated clearly. But consider this. Multiple independent communities living around this lake across centuries developed consistent oral traditions warning about something large and dangerous in the water. And when modern witnesses, pilots, fishermen, scientists, began reporting something large and dangerous in the water, they were, entirely unknowingly, reaching the same conclusion that generations of people before them had already reached. That convergence is worth sitting with. The eyes in the sky. The arrival of aviation in rural Alaska during the 1940s had an unexpected consequence. It gave people a high, clear, unobstructed view of the entire lake surface at once. And once regular routes began crossing Iliamna, the reports started accumulating in ways that couldn't easily be dismissed. The most widely cited early account comes from 1942. Bush pilot Babe Allsworth and passenger Bill Hammersley were flying over the lake when Allsworth spotted large shapes in the water near a small island. He circled. Both men described multiple large, dull, aluminum-colored fish with broad, blunt heads and long, tapered bodies. The specific detail Allsworth noted, the one that has been quoted in every subsequent account, was that the tails moved side to side, not up and down. That is not a cryptid detail. That is a biology detail. Cetaceans, whales, dolphins, porpoises move their tails vertically. Fish move their tails horizontally. A seasoned bush pilot with no zoological agenda reported horizontal tail movement in 1942. Later researchers have treated that single observation as one of the most useful data points in the entire file. By the late 1950s, aerial sightings from multiple independent pilots had accumulated. Large dark gray to metallic animals visible from low altitude on calm, clear days. In a 1988 Alaska magazine article, an unnamed state wildlife biologist described observing a creature he estimated at between 25 and 30 feet in length during a solo flight. He watched it for approximately 10 minutes without it surfacing to breathe, consistent with a fish, not a mammal. Tim Laporte, owner of Iliamna Air Taxi, reported a July 1977 sighting in which he and passengers watched a large, fish-like creature near a skiff, which he used to estimate its length at roughly 15 feet. He described it arching its back, striking the water, then showing a large tail moving side to side as it dove. These are eyewitness accounts. They are not peer-reviewed data, but the consistency of specific details, horizontal tail movement, dull gray coloration, large blunt head, across multiple independent witnesses across multiple decades, is what separates this from a single monster sighting. This is a pattern, named witnesses, repeated observations, and eventually, Alaska's largest newspaper decided to test it. The reward nobody could claim. In 1979, the Anchorage Daily News, Alaska's largest and most prominent newspaper, offered a reward of $100,000 for documented, scientifically verifiable proof of an unknown species living in Lake Iliamna. Over $400,000 in today's money. A legitimate journalistic institution treating this as a serious story. The reward went unclaimed. No specimen, no carcass, no photographic evidence meeting the scientific threshold. Nothing, despite researchers arriving, fishing expeditions being mounted, and camera equipment being deployed. One attempt to attract the creature reportedly involved playing classical music over the water. It did not work. Here is the crucial detail that changes how you read that outcome. The reward was structured around the discovery of an unknown species. The leading scientific hypothesis, as we will discuss, involves a known animal that has simply never been confirmed in this specific lake. The reward was not for proving the creature exists. It was for proving it is something new to science. That is a substantially higher bar, and it remains unclaimed. What the reward actually demonstrates is not that the creature is a hoax. It demonstrates that proving a specific animal's presence in a remote, deep, inaccessible lake to a standard rigorous enough to satisfy scientists is extraordinarily difficult, even with $400,000 worth of motivation on the table. The money eventually went away. The sightings did not. When the sightings became hard to dismiss. In the summer of 2008, Robin Levine, an Anchorage-based anthropologist, was traveling by water taxi across the lake on a calm, clear day when she observed a large, grayish, fish-like creature approximately 15 feet in length in shallow water. Long head, prominent tail, visible fins. She initially compared it to two seals twisted together, then concluded it was a single animal. Her professional background made the account notable. She was not a tourist. She was specific about what she had ruled out. Perhaps the most arresting account in the modern record was collected by marine ecologist Bruce Wright, who published it in his book on the subject. A group of moose hunters were watching a family of swans from their skiff when the swans began disappearing beneath the surface. One by one, What they had taken for submerged logs revealed itself as living, feeding creatures. Wright describes one of the creatures as estimated to be the length and width of their 18-foot skiff, with eyes the diameter of soccer balls. That account is second-hand, from unnamed witnesses to Wright to print. It is not a signed affidavit or peer-reviewed report. It is an anecdote collected by a credible researcher from unnamed sources. Compelling, not independently verifiable. That distinction matters, and it should be maintained. A 1959 Sports Afield magazine account described heavy tackle being destroyed during fishing attempts. Strong line severed, gear lost. Not an engineering analysis. A reported account, worth noting, not hard physical evidence. The honest summary, a substantial and consistent body of eyewitness testimony stretching across 8 decades from named credible individuals describing large animals that do not match any fish species currently confirmed in the lake. Eyewitness testimony is not proof, but eyewitness testimony from a wide range of independent, credible people describing the same phenomenon is a reason to take something seriously. Science took it seriously enough to send in a researcher, and what happened next is where this story changes register. Because when a retired military colonel with 2 wildlife biology degrees sets industrial longlines in the lake and something destroys his gear in a way he cannot account for, this stops being a witness problem and starts being a physics problem. The encounter that left physical evidence. Mark Steiger is a retired colonel from the Alaska Army National Guard, where he served as Chief Aviation Officer. He holds 2 wildlife biology degrees. He has owned a summer cabin on Lake Iliamna for years and has fished it extensively. He is not a person who jumps to dramatic conclusions. Beginning in the 2010s, Steiger set long lines in the lake, the same heavy-duty commercial gear used for halibut and other large deep-water fish, baited with salmon heads. For several summers, nothing unusual occurred. Then, in 2017, he retrieved his line and found it in a state he could not explain. His 38-pound anchor had been dragged approximately 50 yards across the lake bottom. The line ran in the opposite direction from its original set. The gagnons, the short leaders connecting hooks to the main line, were gone. 4-inch stainless steel snaps were bent in multiple directions. The braided nylon cord was shredded. Longline gear of this specification is designed to restrain halibut well over 300 pounds. A 38-pound anchor does not get dragged 50 yards by current. Whatever interacted with this gear possessed substantial physical force. Steiger's response is the detail researchers have cited most. This could be the oldest creature on the planet. I'm not going to try to catch it anymore. He coiled up the gear and stopped. Bruce Wright, a senior scientist and marine ecologist with a background in apex predator research, investigated Iliamna over several years. Beginning in 2019, he deployed an underwater camera system baited with sockeye salmon carcasses. In 2020, something large interacted with the camera housing, damaging part of its metal structure. The camera's battery had run out just before the encounter. No footage was captured. Wright has stated publicly that he was skeptical when he began his investigation and that his skepticism decreased significantly over the course of his research, that every person he spoke to who had spent time on the lake had either seen the creature themselves or knew someone who had. Bruce Wright is not a cryptozoology enthusiast. He is an apex predator researcher. When a person with that background says his skepticism has decreased, that is a data point worth registering. The predator hiding in plain sight. Science has 3 serious biological candidates. 1, the white sturgeon, the largest freshwater fish in North America, up to 20 feet and over 1,000 pounds. Matches witness descriptions almost perfectly in coloration, shape, and behavior. The problem? It has no confirmed population in Lake Iliamna. Plausible, unconfirmed. The second, the giant northern pike, Bruce Wright's own best working hypothesis, is a confirmed Alaskan species with documented ambush predation tactics, including pulling waterfowl underwater from below. The problem? Confirmed northern pike records fall significantly short of the 20 to 30 foot estimates from some witnesses. Either those estimates are substantial overestimates, possible given the difficulty of judging underwater size from a boat or aircraft, or pike are not the complete answer. The third candidate is the one that makes this story genuinely unsettling. The Pacific sleeper shark is a confirmed North Pacific species. documented maximum size, upwards of 20 feet, with potential weight exceeding 4 tons. Dark gray to brownish gray coloration, described by sources as dull or matte, consistent with witness accounts. Long, tapered, heavy body. And its tail, like all sharks, moves horizontally, side to side, exactly as Babe Allsworth described in 1942. Pacific sleeper sharks are confirmed predators of marine mammals in the ocean. Harbor seals and sea otters have been documented in their stomachs. The Kvichak River provides a direct navigable pathway from the Pacific into the lake. Pacific sleeper sharks have been documented in shallow coastal waters, and their close relatives, Greenland sharks, are known to enter brackish and low salinity environments. What is not confirmed? No specimen, no tissue sample, no underwater footage, and no peer-reviewed study places Pacific sleeper sharks in Lake Iliamna. The hypothesis is coherent and circumstantially supported. It remains a hypothesis. The accounts of large creatures appearing to herd seals inside the lake are eyewitness reports, not documented predation events with confirmed species identification. A reasonable inference, not a confirmed fact. But if the hypothesis is correct, what it implies is extraordinary. The answer that refuses to be proven. In 2016, a landmark study published in the journal Science used carbon-14 dating of Greenland shark eye lenses to determine their ages. Led by Julius Nielsen of the University of Copenhagen, the study found that Greenland sharks reach sexual maturity at approximately 150 years of age, and that the oldest individual was estimated at roughly 400 years old, with an uncertainty range extending to approximately 500 years, the longest confirmed lifespan of any vertebrate animal on Earth. Pacific sleeper sharks share the deep-water, cold-water, slow metabolic biology of the Greenland shark. No equivalent longevity study has been conducted on Pacific sleeper sharks, but the biological parallels suggest they may also be exceptionally long-lived. This is a reasonable scientific inference. It is not confirmed. When Mark Steiger said, "This could be the oldest creature on the planet," he was not being dramatic. He was making a biologically coherent observation from a man with 2 wildlife biology degrees. Informed speculation, not nothing. Pacific sleeper sharks are also among the most hydrodynamically quiet large animals in the ocean. They move with almost no body undulation, gliding more than swimming, especially at depth. In field observations, they have been documented approaching prey with minimal disturbance to the surrounding water. They are, functionally, an apex predator that produces almost no advance warning of its presence. Now hold that. An animal exceeding 20 feet, weighing up to 4 tons, moving in near silence, with confirmed capacity to prey on marine mammals, potentially living for centuries, with a direct geographic pathway into a deep, isolated Alaskan lake loaded with salmon and 400 harbor seals. That has left, if the hypothesis is correct, decades of shredded gear, consistent eyewitness accounts, and one very bent underwater camera housing in its wake. And here is the part that should genuinely stay with you. Even if every element of this hypothesis is correct, we may never be able to prove it. Lake Iliamna is nearly 1,000 feet deep. Access is severely limited. The water is cold and, in many areas, low visibility. If a population of large, bottom-oriented, hydrodynamically silent predators were living in those depths, surfacing occasionally to follow salmon into the shallows, occasionally interacting with gear, occasionally being glimpsed by pilots from above, they would have every natural advantage needed to remain unconfirmed, indefinitely. The $100,000 reward sat unclaimed. The best-funded camera effort had its battery run out at exactly the wrong moment. Environmental DNA sampling has been conducted, but has not yet produced a peer-reviewed confirmation of any unexpected large species. And every summer, 5 to 8 million salmon pour into the lake, and whatever is in there are feeds, and the water closes back over the surface, and the lake goes dark again. The mystery of Lake Iliamna is not unsolved because nobody has looked. It is unsolved because the lake itself, in its scale, its depth, its remoteness, may simply be better at keeping secrets than we are at finding them. Here's where the mystery stands. Lake Iliamna is real. The salmon runs, freshwater seals, eyewitness accounts, damaged fishing gear, and marine biologist Bruce Wright's changed opinion are all documented facts. What remains missing is definitive proof. No specimen, no body, no clear footage, and no confirmed DNA evidence. That's what makes this case so compelling. Indigenous stories, pilot sightings, and decades of strange encounters all point towards something unusual lurking beneath the surface. Whatever is in Lake Iliamna has stayed hidden for generations. And if the leading theory is correct, it may have been there long before anyone started searching. What do you think is really down there? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more unsolved mysteries.